Hey guys, Stu Darling from Unstoppable Force. Welcome to the podcast. Do you know what? I believe we can all break out of mediocrity. We can all reach beyond what we thought our limits were. And that's what we talk about on the podcast. We talk about being unreasonable. We talk about raising our standards. And we talk about delivering the ultimate sacrifice again and again. Enjoy. Welcome to this episode of Unstoppable Force TV. In this one, I'm talking to Julie Chapman, the Chief Exec of KidsCan, a charity here in New Zealand that makes sure that kids are prepared for school and for life ahead. We talk about how unreasonable you got to be to start a charity from scratch. We've got to talk about the standards. We've got to talk about the sacrifice you've got to make to do it. But Julie recognized the importance of being unstoppable, to make sure that kids go to school with shoes on their feet, that kids go to school with waterproof, warm jackets, that kids go to school with breakfast in their tummies, to make sure they can learn and grow to be the successful next generation within New Zealand. Enjoy. Welcome to this episode. As I said, Julie Chapman, the founder of KidsCan, is with me for this episode. Julie, so great to have you as a part of Unstoppable Force TV. Welcome.
Thank you, Stu. I am very excited to be here and looking forward to our chat about all things KidsCan and wherever it takes us.
Well, I think your KidsCan has been, it's been on my radar for the last, as long as I can remember. So let's back up a little bit. How and why did it all start?
Yeah, so that's going back a few years, actually 18 years in August, back to 2005. I had been working in various roles in the not-for-profit sector and on the corporate sort of sponsorship side as well. And just through listening to media reports, talking to teachers, I was getting a sense that there was this barrier that children in New Zealand were facing because of their financial circumstances and living in hardship to being able to get a good education. Now, as a kid, I came from, I guess you'd say, a middle class family. Dad worked in construction, mum worked as an admin kind of assistant, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we had enough for, I guess, for them to provide those basics and those things that most of us take for granted when we're growing up as kids. So 3 meals a day, warm clothing, shoes, all of those things. And so when I heard that literally there were a lot of children in New Zealand going without those basics, I thought it was really unfair. So the whole idea about KidsCan came from surveying 80 low decile schools, getting responses and realizing that the need for these practical interventions or programs was significant. And if we were able to do that, we could get kids to school in a position to be able to focus on education. And our whole philosophy at KidsCan is that education equals opportunity. So we started with 40 low decile schools providing shoes, raincoats, food, and then of course we fast forward to where we are today, which is not something to celebrate because we're in over 1,000 early childhood centres and schools across the country.
But that's just completely unreasonable that you went out the door 18 years ago and said, this is a problem and I'm going to sort it. Where does the drive come from?
Oh, the drive. So I've got a strong sense of fairness and justice in my, I guess, personality makeup, if you want to dig into personality profiles, mixed with a lot of tenacity. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was really unfair that there were kids in our own country that were missing out on the basics that we all, as a human right, should have access to. And these kids didn't choose to be born into families that had less money than others. am, in my view, all children deserve the opportunity to get a good education, which is then, I guess, a key and a way to lift them out of poverty and give them opportunities they might not ever have had.
Mm-hmm.
So it really comes down to that sense of fairness and wanting all kids to have a great childhood, as much as they can, but accessing education and removing those barriers.
I think it's, yeah, I mean, remembering back to, before I even landed in New Zealand, there was this sort of fairy tale view that, oh, in New Zealand, kids go to school without shoes on, and it's seen as, it's seen as a good thing. And we've got that messaging wrong, haven't we?
Yeah, that's a bit of a Kiwi kind of thing, that, we're the land of milk and honey, and we get around in our jandals or with our shoes off. And I think that is a thing. It's a kind of a Kiwi thing. But I think the difference is that it's a choice, right? So, but for many of the children that we support, they don't have a decent pair of shoes to put on in the winter. We know that schools, and they've been telling us, by the way, this for 18 years, that some children, it's first up, best dressed. It's who gets to wear the shoes today. We know that some kids don't come to school because their brother or sister's got the shoes. So whilst we have that very Kiwi, relaxed, laid back kind of lifestyle approach, it's about choices. And we want to make sure that parents, we take the burden and the stress off parents who are doing it tough, just by providing those things that are going to get the kids through the school gate and just remove that stress so they can just be kids and get on with learning.
I think, one of the reasons that we are fans of KidsCan and we support KidsCan is because this is the next generation we're talking about. It's we know that full tummies, being warm, being dry, helps kids learn. Why has it come to it? Why do you think, and I'm sure you know, but why do you think it requires a charity to make this happen?
Yeah, so, back 18 years ago, I remember when I first started knocking on doors and really dialing up that tenacious, relentless part of my personality. A lot of people just didn't believe that child poverty existed in our country. And as the years have gone by, the issue hasn't gone away. And in fact, it's got bigger. But I guess there's more awareness and more of a drive and a willingness to look at solutions that are going to help to alleviate that and also hopefully reduce it. When you look at kind of where we've gone over the last 18 years, the key issues for children affected by poverty in New Zealand right now, and actually it's family poverty, are housing. So it's having access to warm, dry, safe, secure housing. We know that many families are spending 50 to 60% of their income on keeping a roof over their heads. It's food. I mean, topic of the day, of the week, of the year, cost of living. So, all of those things play a part in making the budgets of families end up in deficit every week. So we're in a worse position now than we were 18 years ago. But I guess there's a willingness now to actually talk about it and try and actually do something about it. But we as a charity shouldn't have to exist and feed up to 55,000 kids a day across New Zealand.
55,000 kids a day. Take me through, because I've visited the warehouse. Take me through, or take the watchers, the listeners, through the process. People donate. They buy the crackers at Christmas. What's the process that actually gets all of that fills the warehouse and then empties the warehouse? Because it's not pixie dust, is it? There's a lot of hard work that goes into it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have a large warehouse based in Auckland, so our distributions are centralised to go out all across the country. Essentially, I guess the mechanism for schools or early childhoods to be able to get support is they apply to KidsCan. We then go through a detailed needs assessment, so looking at what the needs of that particular school or early childhood centre are. Is it food they need? Is it raincoats? Is it shoes? Is it health and hygiene items? Or is it one of those? Is it all of them? And then we're able to plan kind of a bespoke kind of approach for each school that meets the needs of their students. We then work, of course, with our corporate partners, fundraisers, trusts and foundations, monthly donors, to raise a lot of money each year, which then puts the product into our warehouse. And then we have distributions throughout the year for food once every term, and then ongoing across the year for our other programs for raincoats, shoes, hygiene, all of those sorts of things. So if you were to kind of describe us or kind of sum us up as an organisation, we're an organisation, a charity that has a logistics arm to it, and the fundraising arm to be able to get the money we need to buy the products to go out across New Zealand to help kids.
And is there a waiting list? I know you've said it's getting you in a worse place now, but are we getting on top of this?
There's a waiting list right now of around 80 early childhood centres, which is pretty big, and about 20 schools. As I think we're definitely seeing more schools and early childhood centres apply to us because they're seeing that, I guess, families that might have got by before are being severely impacted by the cost of living. So we're seeing a greater number of families within school environments that may not have needed the support before but do now. So not only do we have a waiting list, but we're seeing demand go up in the schools that we have currently. And so that is, like, when you look at the numbers, we've got over 1,000 schools, pretty much decile 1 to 4 schools, and then what they call equity 1 to 4 early childhoods. And it's a big operation to be able to make sure that we meet the needs of the kids within those centres and schools. And so coupled with that, at the same time, it's getting harder to get donations because, of course, everyone's affected by cost of living. So yeah, we're really trying to manage the tension between that at the moment and still doing what we need to do.
And just to be clear, I know the warehouse is in Auckland, but KidsCan support right across New Zealand, don't you?
Yeah, we're a national organisation, so we have schools and early childhood centres from literally right up north, all the way down to Invercargill, and then across on the west coast, east coast. And if people want to see where our footprint and our reach is, they can look on the KidsCan website, and there's a map there which actually shows all of the schools and early childhoods in the regions that we're in.
Great, and we'll put the website will be up on the on the blurb as part of this episode. You're also quite dynamic. There's the day-to-day of this is how we support New Zealand and schools, but you turn things around during COVID. You turn things around during. I mean, on an earlier episode, we spoke to someone whose house was destroyed in the cyclone. But KidsCan pivoted very, very quickly on both of those occasions to help. How does that planning process work?
I think that the one thing that we try and do at KidsCan is always keep the focus on what is the right thing to do for the children we support. So we take the voices of the children and the needs of them extremely seriously. And during COVID, we knew that there would be a lot of families with children that were relying on the food that we provide at school and other food programs as well, that would be finding it really tough. We knew also that there were other agencies, food banks and the like, that were going to be kind of servicing the metro areas or the urban areas. So we really focused on rural families and hard to reach places. And we were able to get to about 4,000 families with food box parcels that contained product that would last for about 4 weeks. So that was a pivot for us, and we did a big fundraising campaign around that. And, the public really got in behind that and wanted to support it. And I think during COVID, people wanted to do something. And so, for us, it was about giving those that wanted to help an opportunity to do something that was tangible and they could literally see the food and the food boxes that were going to go there. With the flooding in recent times, we've been working with schools in Auckland and obviously down in the Hawke's Bay, Gisborne area around looking at how we can put household furniture and items back together, beds, etc., for kids, so that families and children that we support through schools can get back to living and also learning. As a kid, one of the most important things you can get is sleep. And so if you don't have a bed to sleep on, you're behind the eight ball. So we're still rolling that program out. And that'll go on behind the scenes for probably another 4 to 5 months while we do that, because a lot of people are still displaced. So it's a long play that will make a big difference long after all of the kind of government agencies and things have pulled out of there. And we're there solely for the kids and the families that are most affected.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking on the earlier episode. It's 4 months since Cyclone Gabriel blew through, and it's too easy to forget. I mean, I was quite 4 months. Wow, it's just flown by. And after you've gone through the hiatus of this thing, it's awful. People get on with normal daily life, and it requires your tenacity to say, "Nah, this is still going on." And it's still got months to go for many people.
Yeah, and look, some of our team were down in Ruatoria and on the East Cape, Gisborne areas a couple of weeks ago, and like New Zealand has moved on, and people do, of course, that's expected. But for those communities down there, they still have people living in tents because their houses have been destroyed. In some places they have people living in shipping containers, and so we're getting in there with that really practical support, blankets, cooking equipment, campfire cookers, pots and pans, just to give them some sense of normality. And then we've probably got another 50 to 60 houses that we will refurbish of children that go to our schools and early childhoods in those areas that have lost everything. And a lot of people didn't have contents insurance because they can't afford it. And so this is a way of just setting them up again and taking some of that pressure off. So we think it's really important because, again, it all comes back to being able to get to school and just focus on learning.
But I think it's more than that, though, isn't it? I mean, you talk about the confidence that of just being able to go out the door to go to school. We talk about at Unstoppable Force, we talk about the certainty that we all need in life, so that with that certainty we begin to grow. And talk to me about, you mentioned that you listen to the schools, but you also listen to some of the older pupils as well. There's which helps bring them into the solution rather than just being given to.
Yeah, it's actually about, I think one of the key things for me is not trying to do to people. It's actually hearing their voices and taking that feedback on board when we're designing our programs. We have a student youth council that refreshes each year, and we want to hear the opinions of students and the voices of children, so that when we're designing our programs, we're not just a bunch of adults sitting in Auckland thinking about what might work or what might be of the greatest benefit. And just even with the flood stuff, getting on the ground down there, and I was down in the Hawke's Bay and Wairoa earlier in the year, literally getting on the ground physically and seeing what's going on and the devastation and listening to people and what they really need, that is super important. So I don't think you can underestimate the power of having the voices of the kids involved. And so we're led by that as an organisation. And I think it just makes the programs better and it makes them more fit for purpose.
I think having been on one of the calls with the youth council, they are I mean, they're not even kids. I mean, they're sort of, they're sort of erring on teenagers at the time, but they are so engaged, and it's not they're grateful, but they don't feel that it's been done to them. They feel
Yeah.
it's part of the solution. The engagement that I've seen you have on stage with kids when when the team arrives at a school, it is encompassing. It's not, as you say, it's not being done to them. It's a part of the solution. Are we going to get it right for the next generation? I mean, we're almost one generation away from when you started.
We always say that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, look, I think there's some big systematic changes that need to happen in New Zealand for poverty to truly reduce. And I think, we've made some inroads in that, but of course, for Māori and Pacifica students particularly, there's still a big gap there, and we're not seeing any kind of real movement in those statistics in terms of hardship, material hardship, and deprivation. So, for me, I'm just all about really practical solutions that have good results. Creating really clear expectations of what we want to achieve as an organization and as a team of people, and making sure, like I said, that we keep the voices of the students at the forefront of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really about, so like, we're making sure that when we design new programs or we think about doing new things, we're actually making sure that we're putting our efforts and our resources and our money, which is public money, right? It's donors. We're putting it in the right places, and that we can be assured that the impact is going to be good, but also donors and supporters can trust that we're going to do the right thing.
And what's coming up? I mean, aside from the next natural disaster that decides to wing it across New Zealand, what have you got coming up over this next 12 months that you're excited about, that we can tell the viewers about, and then we'll ask about how they can support it.
Well, I'm just going to put it out there and say, I think we've had enough of natural disasters. We won't be having any more of that. Touch wood.
Okay,
and
I'll
there
take
is some
that.
wood to my left here. So I'm really hoping that we don't have another emergency crisis situation that affects our children and our schools and families. But we've got some pretty cool things happening. We're redeveloping our food ordering portal. That's the portal that all of the schools log into to be able to order the right amounts of food and products that we offer to kids. We're adding a few new products to that, which is super cool.
Can I just, sorry to interrupt, just talking about the products. Most people will have heard about the food and the raincoats and the shoes, but health products as well. For young women as well. That's an important part of what kids can deliver as well, isn't it?
Yeah, we started out doing that, and then we were a huge voice, I guess, for advocating for that to be rolled out on a national basis. And the great thing is that the government did pick that up and are delivering that program now. We still provide, particularly in early childhood and in schools, obviously, head lice treatment and head lice combs. Interestingly, over COVID, we saw a reduction in the need for that because obviously everyone was at home, they weren't going to school, so there wasn't that kind of sharing aspect of putting heads together. But now that we've got that back, we are seeing an increase in the need for that product. We're definitely looking at how we can educate younger children under 5 around good dental hygiene. So that's something that's in the works as well, under development. But I guess for us as an organisation, what we're trying to do is make sure we look at how we are structured as an organisation and make sure our foundations are solid, so that as we do support a greater number of children in schools, nothing falls over. Like, we have the right systems and processes, everything in place, so that as we grow, and we don't want to grow, but we know that poverty isn't going to get better anytime soon, we want to make sure our infrastructure and everything we do is right, so we can just get on with it really and do those practical things.
Do you ever get a break?
Yep, I do get a break. Well, I do. I kind of do. KidsCan's my day job, but I also have another charity called Pet Refuge that I started a few years back, and that was kind of off the back of KidsCan and learning that in family violence situations, pets are often abused as part of that. So that's my other kind of hobby side, I guess. Outside of my day job is having a shelter that specifically caters for family pets affected by domestic violence, and we house them until their families are safe and they can be reunited. So that's a big part of my life. I have a lot of animals myself. I have 13 cats, 2 dogs,
Wow.
10 goats,
If I'd known that.
a bunch of chickens, and a turkey, which can only describe as a guard turkey. Like, it literally is on guard. I like hanging out with my husband, Kane. I started doing Pilates recently, which I'm finding really cool. Walking, get the odd holiday in if I can. But yeah, just trying to create balance. And the most important things for me to keep myself on track are getting the exercise in and sleep. Those two are my key things that I need to do. Otherwise, the wheels fall off.
And it's something that we talk about quite often in Unstoppable Force, is that you can only be an unstoppable force if you take time to stop. And that is,
Yes.
It's feeding, it's sleeping, it's taking on water, it's getting that time away in whatever that time is. Whether it's another hobby, another job, it's getting away from it just so that you can keep going. Because as you've said, as it looks, you ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So how can we help? We'll get the KidsCan website up on the up on Unstoppable Force, and we'll get it on the podcast as well. What can we all do to help?
Well, I guess as individuals, if people are looking for something that's easy to do, it's kind of a regular thing. We do have we call it our village, which is a group of donors that support with $30 a month. And that $30 a month provides food at school or early childhood 5 days a week, a pair of shoes, gumboots for early childhood kids so they can jump in puddles, a raincoat, and that basic hygiene stuff like the head lice treatment. And so that's a great way of doing it, and you can sign up for that on our website. We also would love to hear from any businesses that might want to get involved, supporting schools in their local area, or people that have come up with awesome, crazy, wacky fundraising ideas. We're all up for that. So all of the contact details for all of those things are on our website. And I guess just spreading the word and the message that, 1 in 4 kids in New Zealand live in poverty, and that's not good enough. And we need to do better, and kind of holding our officials and government of the day to account to actually make changes that are going to reduce the need for organisations like ours.
Wouldn't it be great if you were out of a job one day?
Totally, I'd probably get more cats.
Well, okay, maybe it wouldn't be such a good thing. Look, I forgot to warn you on this one. We finish every interview by asking all of our guests exactly the same question. Although I think you already are a superhero, but if you were a superhero, who would you be?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, are ninjas superheroes? Because
they can
I feel
be.
like I'd be
we had Mary Poppins one week. So yes,
what's that?
We had Mary Poppins one week. So yeah, you can have whoever you want.
I'd be a combination of a ninja, James Bond spy type superhero, I think. But
works for me.
I'm not an early morning person, so I've always said if I was going to be that ninja spy person, it'd have to be from like 9 in the morning till like 6 at night. There couldn't be any like long night work or early mornings.
And that's why you'd have a team around about you. So
exactly.
they can do the early mornings. Awesome.
We have the best team at KidsCan. They're just all amazing people.
Yes, they are. I love talking to them. Yeah, every time I feel uplifted whenever I'm off the phone to one of them. As I feel, this has been such a thank you for taking the time today to have the conversation. Thank you for sharing, where it came from, where it's going, and what it is, and how we can all do something to help that 1 in 4 child across New Zealand. Julie, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you so much, Stu. Thank you for having me.
Okay, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, but more importantly, I hope you got something from it. As I say to clients at our workshops, if you take one phrase from one sentence that was uttered during that podcast, then this has been of value. If you're looking for more content, jump across to www.unstoppableforce.co.nz or find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. If you enjoyed this and you want more, we are live across New Zealand at events and workshops and sometimes in the US. If this has been valuable to become an unstoppable force, come along and reach beyond your limits.